Yeah, but look what the region you're in, Steve. I don't think they sell a lot of antifreeze around there.
Okay, we're going live. It says, eventually, there we go. Okay, everybody. Another happy Wednesday. We're all sitting here sweating in the terrible heat. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Run around the circle and introduce ourselves. Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Altair, and I'm a writer, fiction, nonfiction, and I write for the web.
Steve.
Steve Grinzer with Web Narwhal, and yeah, mostly pay-per-click and SEO work these days.
Terry.
Terry Van Horn. I'm in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Kind of retired. I do a bit of stuff. Make a lot of noise on Twitter.
And Simon.
Simon Cox, Lingfield in the UK, technical SEO consultant and general web botherer. And it's cold. It snowed here, so we're all happy.
And I'm Doc Sheldon with Web Narwhal. And it's cold here by my standards, but I set my standards for warm pretty high. So, got some stuff going on this week. I saw some tweets from Gary Ilias. And apparently there's a little bit of conflict between what Google is saying on one page right now and what they're saying elsewhere. And I saw somebody tweeted to him this morning and said, hey, which one of these is wrong, out of date, because they conflict with each other. Basically, the question is to what happens when you get a 500 or a 503 on your robots text file. And he had said, I believe it was just yesterday, he had said that it's going to create problems. We're going to stop crawling if we can't see the robot's text file. Whereas elsewhere, they have said for some time that that's going to cause them to check it more often and see if it's fixed. And if it isn't fixed, it's still a 503, for instance, then they're just going to assume that there's no restrictions in the robot's text file and crawl to their heart's content. It's been that way for some time. Well, now we've got two different documents showing different things. And interesting. I haven't seen his response to that question yet. I haven't had occasion to have a site that had the robots text file blocked, so I don't know, I got no idea what really happens, but I know I've been seeing people say for years now that they'll just assume that there's no blockage.
What if you don't have one?
Say again?
What if it's a 404? You don't have one.
Well, there's a whole lot of sites that don't have one. I would assume at that point that they would assume there's no restrictions.
Right.
That's correct. They do assume that if there is no robot text,
it makes sense that they would treat them all as a 404, basically. But everything they do doesn't necessarily make sense. So maybe that's an erroneous assumption.
Oh, I've not seen a 500 on a robot's text file for many years, and obviously one of the first things I do for technical checks is to see what's going on with the robot's text file, and it's something which I think only really occurs when somebody hasn't set their CMS up correctly. Mm-hmm. I can't think of any other reason why it would do it, and that's going to be the bigger sites, bigger companies. Small sites, WordPress sites, etc. It's not going to be an issue at all. But the bigger sites, yes, when you've got something complex that falls over quite happily, it's those sorts of sites are going to probably be the ones that are going to cause that sort of problem. And getting it fixed, I think, is imperative now. If yeah, maybe in the past you got devs and saying, oh, yeah, we'll fix that later. We've got other stuff which is more important. But now we can go in and say, no, look, they've said this, get it fixed now. And that's a good thing. It's a good piece of knowledge to go in. Devs might come back and point to the other one and said, no, they don't. But you say, well, do you want to take the risk of those two options? What are you going to do? And my answer to that is get it fixed and don't worry about it.
Is it a 503 that Google calls a soft 404?
A soft 404?
Yeah.
That's typically going to be seen as a 200, isn't it?
I'm not sure. But there was a version of IIS where I continually got messages that the robot text was a soft 404. But
Well,
they still index the site, no problem. Just told me that it was a soft 404.
Excuse me while I resist the temptation to lash out at
Yeah,
you
you
on
wouldn't be
IIS.
the first to do that. Only been on it for over 25 years with nary a problem. So, to me, people who just are against, one or the other. Yeah, one is going to be better for one thing.
Well, Tom Anderson is still on MySpace too, so
but I've never had a problem.
I just like to bust your chops, Terry. That's why I come every week.
Yeah, I know. That's why you and Steve are both here. Just got to keep up that tradition.
Yeah, tag team.
So I was reading somewhere, somebody was saying that if you had a robots.txt throwing back a 500 or whatever, that you stood the chance of having your site de-indexed.
Yeah.
And then my initial thought was, wow, I've just found a way to de-index everybody because you just sent a DDoS
Exactly.
into a robots.txt file
Yeah.
only. And nobody's going to notice that because you're not targeting, you're not targeting anything important. And all of a sudden their site gets de-indexed. I can't imagine Google allowing that in any way, shape, or form. So, but then again, they've also done incredibly naive, I'll say naive things because they don't have people there who think like me.
Which may be a blessing in disguise, buddy.
That's sinister. That's sinister.
I've always thought that they needed people who were unashamedly willing to be black hat, just to point out all of the holes that they create every time they roll something out. And they're like, well, this will fix this problem. Well, no, it won't. And here's a list of reasons why.
There's a reason why the federal government hires black hackers to work their security setups.
Well, for all we know, Google may have those people on call.
Yeah, they could. Yeah.
I never try not to underestimate them. Like all the people who think Google's gonna be replaced by Chat GPT. Get real. First of all, think about it. That's real time. What program on the internet could take the pounding that Google takes real time? Because Google's stuff is basically compiled.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you'd be sitting there a minute while they went through a database of trillions of pages.
Yep.
Just how naive people are. Like, do you even think these things through before you say them?
Well, I think a lot of people don't think about the scale at which Google is operating. And they're just thinking, how hard can it be? Well,
They can't fathom it.
Try it.
They
It's
think
really,
they're
it's
smarter.
hard to imagine how big it is. I mean, it's huge.
If you think about it, Google gets the best minds in everything every time. Like basically everybody else takes their cast offs. So, if you think you're going to be able to outdo that, good luck to you. You're only fooling one person.
Yep. Well, what else is going on this week?
Oh no, just ruining people's lives. That's all. Telling them the truth. They just can't take it.
There is a lot of talk about chat. But I'm trying to think how to word this. It's I know people say, oh, it wrote code for me and it did all this stuff, but the thing is, my experience, because since we met last week, I've been looking at it and stuff, and my experience with it is it's so incredibly generic.
Right. I've been reading a lot. People have been having it write short stories about things, and the stories are so similar.
Yeah, they just changed the name of the protagonist. Yeah.
Right. And the whole, I tried to get into a couple of conversations with some content people about using this. And part of the issue that it can't, that the chat and the AI can't resolve is the information gain that you really need to
There's
have.
no
when you're
information
creating content.
gain. There's none. There's
Right.
none, because it's pulling
And-
from all the other stuff. So how can you possibly
Mhm.
have information gain with something that's written by chat? So
And I mean, that goes back to the old days when we were writing content on a more regular basis, where instead of writing a new article, we would update the old one, or, write a new one saying, the original is here, and, the new data is on this one. So you got some more internal cross linking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just don't see the AI at this point being anywhere near capable of delivering that. Can it deliver the really cheap $5, $10, $20 articles all day long that a lot of SEOs like to use? You betcha. Are we going to? Was it somebody published on Hacker News a link to an AI detector tool to run against some of these stories? And it's pretty damned accurate at sussing out what's written by AI and what isn't.
Yeah. Think about this. Google, there was an article out a little while ago. We were talking about it in the room there, where the Googler got fired for saying that their AI was sentient.
Lambda.
Oh, we're really going to get disrupted by some AI piece of crap. Yeah, okay.
Well, his employment got disrupted.
Yeah. Well, they don't want people to know that.
Well,
That they have something that smart with AI. They don't want people to know that, because people would then figure out why the ads are the way they are. And they don't want that big time. Because in the future, you won't write ads. Google will look after it all for you. Right, Steve? You can tell that's the route they're going down.
That's what
They're
they seem to
gonna put
want.
guys like you out of business.
That's what they want. That is certainly what they want. And I would be willing to admit that their Performance Max campaigns are getting better. They are improving. They still can't compete with a well-curated
Let 'em in.
ad campaign that's been running for several years.
Yeah.
They can't even really get close to those. But if you're just starting out, it's not horrible. We're doing some split testing right now with one of our clients, and the jury's out, but I don't see it doing better than what we've been doing manually. And I don't see what their internal black box does now is better than what we did manually years ago.
But that's all they have to do is match your performance, and then, someone doesn't need to pay you. That was my point.
Well, the other aspect is too, if you're, at what scale are you working? Because
Right.
it may be that you could handle 300 clients more efficiently using their AI. if it will do as well as you could do manually, because it saves you a hell of a lot of time. But I don't
if you're
think that's
using their
really,
AI,
that's not
they
really
don't-
doing service to your client either, you know?
Yeah, we run into a lot of issues, even more so now with the Google Ads reps. They are scrambling, at least the ones I've talked to, they're scrambling to get any kind of justification for their job. I've had the last 2 or 3, they were all upset that we weren't running GA4 yet. And it's like, no, this has to be done. It's an emergency. It's got to be done right now. And it's like, well, no, technically it doesn't have to be done till April. And we aren't touching any, yeah, and we're not touching any of this until, after the first of the year anyway. So your point, well, it just really needs to be done. Or, and then somebody said, well, Google will just automatically update that for you later. It's like, no, because that would require them to have access to my website. And that's not going to happen. I already have too many people with their fingers in our websites.
But if you look at the real problems that Google has, outside of the United States, it's useless because isn't it already against the law? Because they share data with the US government against the EU privacy laws. I thought that was part of the reason for Facebook not being able to do some stuff.
Well, they got fined big time by the commission for GDPR violations, as did Facebook, and
but I think sites are going to start to get fined for using GA in the EU because it comes out of the United States. Is that right, Rob or Simon? Have you heard of that?
No. I can imagine maybe parts of possibly Germany and France might be pushing for that.
especially Germany,
Not the UK. No, we're just slaves to everyone now.
No, but I mean the EU was pushing that garbage.
Yeah.
Trying to force them into companies that are in the EU. That's what it's all about.
Well, you did say Europe, and we still technically are geographically part of Europe. We're just not part of the EU.
Oh, Jesus. I forgot you guys told them that.
There was this thing called Brexit.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. I still assume you all are together.
I really wish we could forget about it, but we can't.
yeah.
One happy family, but I don't think that happens much, especially where the French are involved.
Hello, Rob. Glad you could join us.
Hi, Doc. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm also watching the football, but I had to work out the timings. I was like, so what time is that GMT? So I Googled EST to GMT. I thought, oh, they're there now. Let's pop in and say hello.
Very kind of you. What's the score? Actually, I don't want to know.
It's I won't
I
tell you.
really don't care about football at all.
Oh, you don't care? I'll tell you then. It's 1-0 for France.
Oh.
Yeah.
At this point, we're going to see a grown man cry.
So how is everyone?
I'm
Yeah,
good.
we're
It's good to see you. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
It has indeed, T. Has indeed, mate. Yes. Yeah, I'm well. Trying to keep up with all the latest stuff, probably like everybody else. The so-called helpful kind of content, update rubbish, and the latest thing, which I find quite interesting, the chat GPT stuff. I'm loving that. I think it's really cool. What do you guys think?
I'm not impressed with it. I mean, I'm impressed with the technical aspects of building ChatGPT. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That was a heck of a job. I am not terribly concerned about it replacing an awful lot of writers. It will for the guys that are happy to go to Fiverr or pay $10 an article, but
Yep.
for people who want quality content, it's just not there yet. I do
Oh, I
think
agree.
I think
agree.
it could be helpful if if I had to write an article on a niche that I really had very little knowledge of, and I
Mm,
just want some ideas, absolutely.
totally agree, Doc. Yeah. I think it's pretty cool how you can say to it, like, write me an article about X and include 5 pros and like 5 cons as an example, and it will pump something out. You can read it and think, oh, okay, well, I don't agree with that, but I like that aspect. That's
Mhm.
fairly on point.
Yeah.
And whereas you may have kind of sat there at the start and looked at the screen and scratched your head a little bit, like, so how am I going to start this? It's great in that respect. I've also found it fairly useful, like for functions and things. So I just the other day I was playing around. I says, write me a JavaScript function that will take a div and create an image of that div, i.e., whatever's in that container. And fair play, it
Does a pretty good job
then-
of code. Yeah.
yeah. So it's definitely useful. But
And
yeah,
it's-
is it going to replace search? No. Is it going to replace writers? No. But I think it's a useful, nice to have. I mean, if they ever roll out like Lambda, then that's going to be super interesting. But we shall see.
Well, I think that
I'm personally more concerned how it's going to affect artists, especially after what DeviantArt did, where they trained their art AI using the entire content of DeviantArt, saying, well, we have permission to do that. But if you don't want us to use your photos from now going forward, you can opt out. But they've already used all that to train the art. And you're always going to have people who aren't willing to pay artists. But I think what they have effectively done is increase that threshold considerably. It's going to make it harder for the artists to stand out and make a living because so much has gotten so cheap.
And one of those sub niches of artists is musicians. They've also got one out there now that's doing a pretty impressive job of putting together a musical score
Right.
or
Anything.
poetry. If you want a haiku and you don't mind the fact that the line that's supposed to have 7 syllables has 5, okay, but that seems to have confused it a little bit. But I've seen some lyrics that put together that were pretty darn good, and some musical scores that were impressive. So yeah, it does. It just increases the ability of people to rip off art.
I think it's just good because it uses a set of documents as a trainer. So it can be used for chatbots to answer questions, all kinds of things, especially in a closed system. For instance, a large bank that has hundreds of questions that need to be answered. I don't mind that, especially when the bank also includes links to other parts of the websites in that explanation. So I think it's good for that. I would, if I was still doing SEO and writing a lot of stuff, I would give it 10 documents, summarize each document for me, take those summaries, pull what I want out, rewrite it a bit, and good to go. Basically, you can, for years, most of the content on the web is just parroted a different way. So Google now looks for covering intent and that kind of stuff. So,
you also have to be, we're going to have to be really careful going forward too, because there was another, a guy who had done his PhD thesis on, I forget what it was. And he asked the AI to write a academic paper based on what he did his thesis on. And it just made up stuff when it couldn't find answers. And so then so he would ask it for sources. Well, then it made up the sources. It didn't, because it couldn't find it, because what he was asking it to do was not possible and did not exist. So the AI went, well, here you go. I'll make some shit up. And at the end of the day, that paper looked legit. It had source, it cited sources. And unless you knew enough to go ahead and follow through to those sources, you wouldn't have known those didn't exist. All you would have seen is this long academic paper with, 18 different sources cited, and 3/4 of those sources were completely made up.
Damn,
But
that's
That's the
almost
problem,
half
Steve,
the-
isn't it? It sounds plausible. It reads like it's plausible. If you didn't know, you'd Alexa, be quiet, please.
and made even worse by the fact that the vast majority of people that are looking at a monitor any given day have zero critical thinking skills. So they're going to believe anything that they see.
Well, that's what
Yeah, totally.
90%
Absolutely.
of misinformation is counting on. The fact that some people will just read stuff and think it's true. It's on the internet. It
Must be true. Yeah.
Is it not a bit of a green light, though, like for Google to roll out sort of Lambda, in the sense of it seemed that there's a fair degree of interest in the AI stuff that's put out, and if theirs is so much better, isn't there an argument to use it kind of mid-page and do a few experiments and whatnot and see how well it's received? So I read something about how it becomes a bit more of a challenge to interrupt those kinds of pieces of content or conversations with ads. So maybe that's a reason there. But like for the knowledge panels and things like that, I don't know.
It's hard to monetize that because you don't know what the person's going to ask till they've already asked it.
Then you just build something into the Lambda to actually spit out adverts as it's talking to you.
I'm sure if they use it, they'll know how to monetize it. It won't happen until.
And maybe they'll do it subtly as well, as opposed to an ad coming on the thing. Maybe they just put, "Oh, I've got one of these. Have you thought about getting one?" into the conversation.
Yeah,
They've been using AI and ML and machine learning since 2011 and probably before that. We just know that it started in 2011 with Panda and Penguin, based on the interview with the Googler on Stone Temple.
Well, that Lambda, for instance, or probably other AI programs that they have, the thing that Steve was talking about, this totally fabricated paper, that's the kind of stuff that an algo could very quickly scan, verify, check all those links, look on that link to see if this excerpt is really mentioned there in a way that makes sense. And that could be rapidly productive, but I don't know that they're interested in determining and sharing with us the fact that this paper or this document or this web page is inaccurate. I think they're interested in knowing it, but I don't know if they're going to be eager to share it.
I think from the knowledge graph, they know some stuff is crap.
Oh, sure.
Just based on what they have in there.
Yeah.
And
But
the
I
way
think
that
that-
all the words that are in those documents are connected. Yeah, that's why I laugh when people think they can't detect it. They may even detect it and say, you know what, not really hurting anything, and this is helpful content, so let her rip. I don't think they really care that you're using AI. I think they really care how it affects their users.
Well, sure, because that affects their ad base. Yeah.
Well, the ad base depends on users. If no one comes to use it doesn't matter if you have a stranglehold on the ads. Doesn't matter.
But I mean, they can sell ads because of the volume of their user base.
Right.
Yeah.
And they sell lots of them because it's a destination. That's why they're probably more worried about Apple or Amazon becoming a major search destination than any AI program. Because those guys really do eat into their share for important terms.
Yep.
On another science topic, I was far more interested to see that they finally had nuclear fusion produce more energy than it took to make it.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
It's going to take them another 40 years to make it scale.
right?
But
But still it
it's hard.
happened. I mean, it
Yeah.
is pretty incredible.
Yep. Well, and it's clean.
Mhm.
Radical concept, eh?
And just requires water, doesn't it?
And
there's-
we read that where, Steve?
It's
The Futurist had an article on it.
Futures had it. It was on
Yeah.
CNN.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I was
on-
shocked at how few places actually talked about it. How it was like,
Well, maybe I was going to say maybe that many reporters aren't using AI yet to generate their stories, but maybe they are. No, I've read it as well, and I believe it. But I thought that was quite amusing coming off the back of the AI writing stuff for us, and I can see that. Well, certainly from the newspapers side of it, some of the stories that I read in the UK press, they look like they have been written by AIs, bad ones. And I'm not sure what's going on there, but some of them are just terrible. It's like somebody slept down and took 5 minutes to write a page or something and just shoved it out. And they don't go through that process they used to. It's just getting views into pages with adverts on them. So yeah, I've read it enough places that I believe that happened. But I'm afraid we're going to get into maybe next year and the year after, etc. We're going to be in a place where people are going to be using AI for political campaigns, and you chuck something out there that's false but does the right message for your political campaign, and we've seen that in the past. Now they can just turn around and say, "Well, yeah, the AI got it wrong." I think we'll hear that a lot.
And if you add to that, also, Simon, deep fakes and whatnot, imagery,
Absolutely.
how that can be created. It's scary times. Like in a polarized world, you're going to have one side saying, "Did you see that video of politician X saying this? I told you they were this and that," and it all gets very messy, doesn't it?
It does.
But we'll see.
you don't even have to fake them. You just crop them in a certain way, and you can make just about anybody look horrible just by removing context from their discussion.
Yeah.
That's what the woke shit's all about. Forgetting time. Woke, it makes me sick, like.
A wokeism.
Yeah. I don't understand it. Like how you can say 200 years ago, a guy colonized Canada, but he's a bad guy for doing. Why? That's what they did back then. It was perfectly acceptable. Can't hold them to the same standard now as they did 200 years ago. Not right. I hope nobody does that to me, or I'd be fucked.
You wait till they get a time machine. You're fucked then.
Well, it's like banning books that were written in a previous time that have,
Same
culture.
thing. Yeah.
Cultural things, and people ban the books out. You do not have enough discernment to understand this is historical and it is a cultural comment. And no, they're banning the books. So
This stuff happened. Tearing down a few statues ain't gonna change nothing.
No. Although you probably argue that I think it's okay to stand up and say, well, in today's context, that shouldn't have happened.
For sure.
But yeah. So we had a little thing here in Britain where certain statues were being thrown in harbours and things like that, or torn down, a lot of protests. And it started a bit of a debate around what was actually important. Was the statue more important than the cause itself? And back and forth it went. But everything seems to be a little bit up in the air these days. I look at Twitter and Musk and I just scratch my head and think, what the fuck's going on? I mean, is he making some kind of play? Is he going to run like for president at some point? And this is his way of courting popularity. And I don't know. I do know it's a bit bloody messy over there, and
It is.
I certainly don't sort of use it as much as I used to. I'm finding Mastodon a more pleasant, but even then, like I hear people saying, "Oh, you know, the Fediverse and all this sort of stuff. It's owned and controlled by those who control the servers." Blah 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 blah. So, hey, social media, right?
Well, it getting a lot of press today about the fact that he fired his entire legal team, because they were saying you can't refuse to pay these terminated employees. That's the
Right.
law. So he fires them, and he's using the Tesla legal team instead.
Right.
He's auctioning off all the furnishings of the building, and he's not going to pay the rent anymore. And it's just like, if he had a game plan of let's bury this company and make it cease to exist, he couldn't write it any better.
No, I think he's trying to make it profitable.
How, Terry?
Have you got your blue tick, Terry?
Huh?
Have you got your blue tick?
No, I never
Paying you
paid for
$8.
Twitter.
$8.
I mean, there's lots of
$8.
good places that I wouldn't pay to be on. Like, really, you know, like, here's the way I look at it, right? There ain't nothing I've seen on Twitter that I haven't seen 10 times elsewhere. So why would I pay to be there?
I wouldn't pay him $8 a year, much less $8 a month for that.
A month, yeah.
However, he could easily lose me by doing the bullshit that Facebook does, where if I follow someone, I want to see their shit, not every other idiot that they have followed, because some people just follow anyone who follows them. That's how I see the nonsense. However, if they check mark and then he amplifies that, he made a cesspool into a shit pool. And that's what I see happening at some point.
Well, it's already, they're out, you know, all these things that pop up in your timeline and say, would you like to see more or less of this kind of content?
Oh, that's on Facebook. Yeah.
That was a particularly interesting one. So yeah, I'd like to see more of that. And then you get the 130,000 other idiots that are putting that kind of crap up. You know, if you want to read stupid comments all day, then go to Quora. They've got tons of them.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm quite happy with Mastodon at the moment. It's got a feel of Twitter back in the start of Twitter. And there's some really good conversations on there. I had to get rid of a couple of bits of spam today from our instance, and that's really the first we've had
On Mastodon.
in a month on our instance. And I just limited the people so that these two accounts that came on and started posting a load of stuff, the only people that will see that are the people that are following them, and they've got nobody following them, so they can just chuck as much as they want in and nobody's going to see it.
So in terms of that, Simon, does the software kind of look at any user signatures? Is it looking at like IP addresses, user agents and all that stuff, or is it just
No, it's manual.
Okay.
So on our instance,
Because that get worse,
to
right?
do that. Yeah, possibly, yes. And that's one of the reasons I don't really want to see Twitter disappear, because I'm quite happy for it to be a cesspool with all the cesspool people in it.
Leave those
I
idiots
don't want them on
over
Mastodon.
there.
If it collapses, they might all come onto Mastodon, and I'm like, no, I don't want that. I really don't want that lot over there.
I can agree with that.
I didn't use Twitter for a number of years, and I just recently came back. The biggest difference I see, it's all discussions. Very few people actually say, I wrote this post, and it's not like as much of a broadcast network or an announcement. I used to call it an announcement record broadcaster at first, because I just saw it as a way to promote content.
Absolutely, Terry. I think early days I was the same. Yeah.
That was when it was really interesting. And now, because you know why? Because I could go to a blog and see if the guy was full of shit or, you know, otherwise. now, and you can tell people following people on Twitter and saying all these great things about their thread. Well, hey, go look at the guy's blog. He's full of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that goes on, isn't there? People open up threads with hot takes and stuff like that, and then all of their fanboys all dive in and say, "Oh, cool, man! Yeah, that's really great. Thanks." La, 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 la. And then occasionally, like someone will wade and say, "Well, actually, that's a load of bollocks." And they're like, "What do you mean?" Well, and suddenly they're blocked or hidden and whatnot, and I don't know. I just smile now. I just can't be bothered, really. But I certainly remember back in the day, it was useful because people would share interesting new stuff, and you followed people because of what they shared, and invariably it was blogs and blog posts and things like that. And when people had something to actually write about and talk about, I don't know now. I mean, there's very few things that are new. People like kind of Barry Schwartz are fantastic because he posts all those little bits and pieces that are relevant and actually make a difference. Sure, like some of it's crap as well. We might see a bit like John Muller said, "Don't have a cup of tea before 9 o'clock." Oh, great. Search news. Oh, well, okay, Barry, cheers. But yeah, those old days of where there were people kind of writing about stuff sort of regularly on their blogs invariably has gone, right?
Yeah,
people just don't do it.
Yeah.
I can't figure out why it's ceased being that. Or is it that people just don't write that kind of stuff on blogs anymore? It's all about ranking on search engines.
I have several friends who have taken to writing what they used to write for their blog, and they're either writing it on LinkedIn or they're writing it on Facebook.
Right.
Because that's where
it's a big audience, you think?
Yep. Yeah. They have a much larger discussion happen with what they've written. Does it help their website rank any better? No. But does it build their personal brand online? You bet.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Are they trying to broadcast information, make their website more successful, or simply brand? And yeah, articles on LinkedIn are great for branding. Articles on Facebook are great for branding. Even on Medium to a degree. But
on LinkedIn, you also see a lot of articles being shared, almost like it used to be on Twitter.
Yeah.
It's a very different audience over there as well. It's getting a bit spammy these days, but it's quite a different audience, much more business focused, etc.
Yeah, but
something
they're
that
not
we always
as my memes as they are on Facebook.
Yeah. So we're always advocating is your website. This goes back to the very beginning of things. If you've got a website as your central core piece, all the social media you're using link back to the website, story on the website, not a medium.
Yeah,
you can thread bits of it through Facebook and what have you, but pull them back into your website. Even if the audience there is tiny compared with the online services, or the social services, you'll capture those with bits and pieces and then pull them back to your website. But when those social media things collapse, say Medium goes pop, people have lost a huge amount of work. But if it's on your own website, you own it. And there's so many people have been banging on about that for years, and most people don't listen. Those of us who are more deeply involved with web understand this, but there's a lot of, especially younger people, who don't understand it because they haven't grown up with the web growing up. They just go out and chuck stuff in wherever.
Well, I think that happens with service businesses as well, where they have a listing on Yelp or something like that, and so they feel they don't need a website because that's the place where people go.
That's my new target audience.
Yelpers?
No, businesses like that are not online.
That are not online, yeah, they're doing themselves.
I want to design something that basically says, open up WordPress, everything is all the lessons are built right in WordPress. And yeah,
It's really common though, T, isn't it? Like so as a friend of mine, one's a personal trainer, and one's a dog trainer, and they both pump out loads of stuff in their Facebook groups, emails and whatnot. And I say to them, look, why aren't you putting that stuff on your blog? Hey, what? Put it on your blog. Jesus Christ, it takes 2 minutes. Cut and paste it, change the title, a little date, whatnot. Build that content base, because when Facebook's gone, or when Twitter's gone, or Instagram and all that stuff's gone, where's all your stuff? Oh, but I say it until I'm blue in the face. Do they do it? Occasionally.
Nope.
Sometimes.
Where I'm at in the United States, a fair percentage, 30-40% of the businesses in the area don't have websites. They
At
barely
all.
have a Facebook page. And I gave up going in and talking to them because not one of them wants a website. They're like, no, I already have more work than I can handle. I don't need to promote myself.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, sometimes over time that changes because new people come in who do have websites. And the word of mouth referral that built your business to begin with will dry up as people like me search the internet for stuff.
Yeah, I don't know about in the United States, but in Canada, there's no such thing as a phone book anymore.
No.
They don't deliver them. They,
There's none here.
it's all online. So if you don't have a website, it's like having a business and not having a phone when it was, people
A
went
few
yellow
years ago, I needed a motorcycle mechanic. And I looked the nearest motorcycle mechanic I was able to find online was going to be put the bike on a trailer and drive for an hour and a half.
Right.
And so I asked a couple of people locally, and I'm like, I'm looking for somebody to work on a motorcycle. They said, oh yeah, one of the best motorcycle mechanics in the States just down the road here.
Yeah.
And it's like, you drive up to his house and it's like a garage, and there's like one motor oil sign hanging on the garage. So I just went up and knocked on the door. He's like, oh yeah, I've been here for 30 years. And it's like, couldn't have told by me. I had no clue.
Yeah,
So,
but
Terry-
I think pretty, I think
Terry,
pretty soon if you don't have that, you're not even going to be really seen as a real business.
In Canada, if your strongmen if you have no phone books anymore, what are your strongmen ripping in half at the weekends?
Phone book
Because we
sale-
don't have them here anymore either. So
Mm.
War and Peace.
There you go.
But I think that there's so many small business owners who don't understand the power of having a presence, of having a simple online presence, like a website,
Yeah.
And I know I first encountered that when I was going out to local businesses here, and talking about Google My Business, and I'd say it's free. It takes 5 minutes. The hardest part is waiting for the postcard to come. And they're like, oh no, I'm not gonna do that. And then they just don't see how people search on the web for things. I mean,
That's established businesses, but any business that is opening up today or just recent, right? They realize they need a website because they don't
yeah,
have it.
because they're usually younger people, Terry, who have
Right.
had.
I'm also
experience.
counting on the recession coming up and people losing their jobs, and people like myself who have been retired for 3 years. I'm getting bored. I'm ready to go back to work. They're going to be looking for a way to sell what they're doing. And if you can keep it cheap, like I'm looking at you'll learn how to build a website and promote it in 2 months. and I'm going to charge like $300. It'll be just taking what I've already written, a lot of it, and plugging it into.
I think that's a good idea. I think one of the problems with Google My Business when I was talking about it, so when was this? I did maybe almost 10 years ago now, but was, ooh, if it's free, there must be something wrong with it.
Okay, but Google
So
My
$300, that's a steal, right?
not only that, but I'm going to recommend what tools to use for what based on, all my experience.
Mm.
Right? Google can't even recommend a tool in their own courses because, everybody would be up in arms and, oh, you can't do that. You're Google. You can't do that. That's not fair. I'm going to go cry on my mommy's shoulder if you do that.
There's a lot of mommy shoulder crying.
Oh, yeah. The trophy. I call them the trophy generation. They never had to compete for a thing in their fucking lives. And they expect everything to be handed to them. And everyone should be treated equally. Well, sorry. That just ain't how she goes, boys.
There you go, holding back again, Terry.
Yeah. I couldn't do that.
Oh my God.
Never know what you always know what I'm thinking.
There you go.
I say exactly what I'm thinking.
There's value in that.
There's a lot of value in it. Otherwise, you could get something that was written by AI.
Yeah.
An AI Terry. Can you imagine an AI Terry?
Can you,
How
Ben,
would you like to answer this question in the style of Webmaster T, please? Create an audio file. Thank you.
There'd be a lot of deleted parts.
That'd be very good. Yeah.
Swearing.
there you go.
One other thing I thought that kind of AI is really good for, and I think it's already being used for this, is transcribing videos.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember a number of years ago, before Google even fixed theirs, the price, I was getting full hour videos transcribed for like $10.
Yeah.
And like it's probably even cheaper now. But it was because I think someone had developed it to the point that it didn't need a lot of editing to be right.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, it's a fascinating time and space. I mean, have you guys, you've probably got like Alexa. I'm not going to say that word because it'll start speaking, but over there somewhere is that ALEXA thing. And on a few occasions it said, would you like me to remember your voice? And I said, no. And I might have swore it as well. I do wonder, is there some voice mapping going on there? You can picture, I mean, if Lambda is as good as they say it is, could it take a few intonations? We probably all use that thing with our bank. So the bank I use over here, there's a phrase I use, and that is my password. And it recognizes me and says, hi, Rob, blah, 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 etc., etc. You're skint, you need to get out there and work harder. No, it doesn't, of course. But is it getting to a point whereby, as I kind of jokingly said there, create me a piece in the style of Webmaster T about topic A or B, and you can actually hear that read in that style. I don't think we're that far away, are we? So it's fascinating, really, because like things that were the stuff of like science fiction years ago are suddenly becoming reality. So.
In some ways, the thing they had on Star Trek, right? The information thing they had is kind of like Alexa.
Yeah.
Get a question and it answers it.
No way.
I see that stuff growing more and more. Like now when they build a house, that stuff's all built into it. It's like the internet, you know, in the old, like when we all started, basically, you know, hardly anyone had internet. Now, when they build a house, they put the infrastructure right there. Houses now, the locks are all protected by, you know, apps on.
Algorithm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all built into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
going
those
to be
simple
amazing.
forms, all those simple forms that we've probably, like some of us have all kind of built in a shape or form, i.e., if user enters this or that, multiply it by that number, divide it by this. You know, these days you can build kind of whole projects and price it all out, and it will take all those measurements and dimensions. It will know how many screws are involved, how many planks of wood, how much insulation, how much glass, the cost of that glass.
Well, that
and it's just incredible because
programs like that have existed, Rob, for well over 30 years.
Yeah,
wow.
That would give you a bill of materials to purchase to build a particular, you know, whether it be a little bitty shed, an 8x8 shed for your backyard, or a 2-story house. If you can give it the specifications, it will give you drawings and a bill of materials. They're not cheap. They cost like $2,500 30 years ago.
Right.
But
No, we used to be able to, when we built our first barn back in Indiana, I went to one of the Build It stores, Menards, and they had a little kiosk. And you went, I want to build a barn. And it said, what shape barn? And you clicked the shape, and then it said dimensions, and you pushed the dimensions. And you picked a couple of doors and windows, and you went print. And it spit out all the materials you needed. And and if you were in an area that needed the building permits, it spit the information out for all of that.
Yep.
And you took the sheet of paper up to the counter, and they went, here's the price. We'll have it delivered to you in 2 weeks. And out the door you went. And I mean, it was dead simple back then.
I did a 2-story office building in Mexico City with that software. The only thing that it did not give me was which had to be shear walls.
Okay.
Oh, you know, that was the only thing that I had to do the calcs to determine where my shear walls had to be to satisfy the permit. Everything else was there. Total bill of materials that lets me decide what kind of a waste factor do I want to have, you know, some kind of a fudge factor, 10%, 8%, whatever. But it gave me everything except shear walls and labor costs.
That's usually built into municipal regulations, right?
Well, this was married to AutoCAD, and it was.
When you say shear wall,
okay.
load bearing wall.
Well, a shear wall is they're all, well, they're not all. It's not just load bearing wall. It's the wall that's going to be have a lot of amplified stress put on it in case of any seismic activity, for instance, or high winds, that sort of thing. So, you know, just load bearing, these two adjacent walls are equal. Okay, they're holding the same vertical load, but in the event of a north wind or in the event of a quake, then 70% of the load on this wall is going to be transmitted over to that wall. So it's got to be de-stressed differently, you know.
Yeah.
And if you haven't taken that into consideration, your engineer at the permit level is going to shoot you right in the foot, you know. But and or your building's going to come down the first time there's a quake.
I used to build houses and broke my hand putting in a center beam that was steel. Went right through the hole. The idiot who measured it out was about a 1/4 inch short. So I kept saying, it's right near the edge. It's right near the edge. And the guy said, I told you to push. So I fucking pushed. And he's trying to hold up this big beam, him and 3 other guys. It's a wonder I just broke my hand and that was the only injury, but laughed my ass off while in between shaking my hand.
No, but they've got stuff like that now, Rob, that will.
Oh yeah. And
have had them for, you know, over 30 years that I know of, that can extrapolate all those material costs. They can actually, I'm sure that by now, for instance, you could go to Menards and say, okay, I'm in a high size, seismic zone 4, or I'm following UBC standards or whatever, and it will give you specific code numbers for different ramifications, so.
Yeah.
Well, sure. I think I'm saying that it's probably been like boiled down now, condensed with the processing power that most computers have got now into a big old kind of like a JavaScript, and they can function like through web pages or be linked to some server-side application. I think that generally a lot of that stuff is a lot faster and more accessible. I think that's the sort of point, because I can remember AutoCAD back in 1995, and I remember being fascinated about, so they can say that the sun's there, it's going to cast a shadow there. Oh, cool! How's that work? I think that's probably around about the time I got interested in the web itself, when we had like Windows 95 and all that sort of stuff. It was all starting to connect together, rather than just be the product of like CDs or like kind of floppy disks and whatnot. But yeah,
I worked
think
with a
it's
company
this.
that used something called marketing automation. When they took a client on, it did like all you did was click one button and it did a whole bunch of jobs that would be related to setting up an SEO client.
yeah. I mean, it's still a bit of a headache in that like process. Well, like for me, like some people do it really, really well, but I find the onboarding, like kind of prospecting stage, awfully painful at times, in terms of, the dialogue. Like someone comes to you, say, I've got a problem with my website, can you help me? And okay, so what do you do, what are you looking for, bloody blah. And invariably I find, like for me, I can spend a lot of time fucking about, back and forth. Invariably it goes nowhere, because there's something wrong in my process, I guess, somewhere. But it's kind of small businesses. I think it's really hard to commoditize really simply what it is about kind of online, in my humble opinion, at least.
Well, particularly when there's so many clients that really are ignorant of many important aspects of their own business.
Yeah.
Like, what's your cost per product? What's your cost per customer? Who are your customers? Everyone. Yeah, I don't think so, buddy.
Yeah, everyone. Oh, God.
You wish.
Here's a red
But,
flag. I was
so
going to
it's
go
hard
back
to
to
extract that information sometimes because they don't know the answers.
I mean, I experimented even with implementing a form, and the form more or less said, let's have an introductory chat about what you actually are looking for, what you're looking to achieve, what your problems are, etc. We'll hook up on Zoom and we speak for half hour, an hour. If I feel I can work with you, which I believe in most cases I can, I'll refund you the cost. I mean, it's early days with that kind of stuff, but just like, I don't know about you guys, like personally speaking, again, I'm sick to death of wasting my fucking time and energy communicating with people who are not interested, or who don't really know what they want, and it's not really worth me spending 2 or 3 hours of my time educating them around what it is they do and the challenges they have and what their expectations are. Yeah,
it's tough.
The joys of being in business for yourself, right?
Yeah.
yes, sure.
I think we're at the top of the hour, so we should actually a little bit past. Glad you could make it and join us, Rob.
It's been lovely chatting with you.
Open door anytime.
Thanks for letting me know. I'm going to get back to the old World Cup. There you go. Just in case you wanted to see what was going on.
Alexa, turn the TV off.
That's cool.
Ah.